Okay. Webinar is being recorded. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. This is the Staff Evaluations Ad Hoc Committee meeting. Just a reminder to everyone that the full commission has the responsibility under the municipal code to evaluate the police chief, the CPRA executive director, and the inspector general. The Staff Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee merely makes recommendations to the full commission. I want to get for the record everyone's attendance here today. I'm Commissioner Brenda Harbin-Forte. I chair this ad hoc. We have Commissioner David Jordan on, who is a member of this ad hoc committee. The other commissioner member of the ad hoc committee is Rudy Howell. He will be joining us late. We have our commission counsel here, Tweed Nguyen, and we also have Michelle Phillips, the inspector general, present.
And Kelly, sorry, and Kelly.
Go ahead. And we have our chief of staff, Kelly Young, present as well. Thank you, David. Sorry. I should just look at the screen and get everybody. I apologize, Kelly. The Staff Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee, as ad hoc committees go, are not legally required to operate under the Brown Act. There is no legal requirement that the commission must seek feedback from the inspector general or public members on the IG evaluation form. Nevertheless, the commission has committed to publishing the evaluation form at a commission meeting and inviting members of the public to provide feedback. We anticipate that the commission will agendize the evaluation form at its next regular commission meeting on June 22nd. We invite members of the public to attend and provide feedback then. The ad hoc also extended an invitation to Inspector General Phillips to meet with the ad hoc committee today to walk through the feedback she provided in December or January or so, early part of the year, on the evaluation form. Inspector General Phillips requested that her meeting with the ad hoc committee today be made publicly accessible for members of the public to join. And to honor her request, the ad hoc committee is making the first 30 minutes of the meeting allotted for feedback by Inspector General Phillips to be a public one. The ad hoc committee will then convene in a closed meeting with commission counsel. As a reminder, this 30-minute allotment is meant for feedback from the inspector general. If members of the public wish to speak, you may raise your hand and you will be provided 2 minutes to address the ad hoc committee. Please keep your remarks related to the agenda item of the Inspector General evaluation form. And please be reminded that the ad hoc cannot respond on personnel matters. Inspector General public portions of the ad hoc meeting are typically recorded, as you probably know. So we'll follow that typical protocol, especially given that this portion is a public space. So what I'd like to do, Inspector General Phillips, is to go through the evaluation tool that we're contemplating using. You previously submitted comments on this matrix, and we'd like to hear more of your feedback. I'm going to ask our Chief of Staff, Ms. Young, if she would please do a screen sharing of the document that will also have Inspector Phillips, Inspector General Phillips, her comments. And some of the redlining were some stylistic edits that I made, proposed edits that I made. None of them I don't think are substantive. But Inspector General, I would really sort of like to turn it over to you. You had comments on each section of the, just about every section of the evaluation form rather. So I'd like to turn it over to you and just sort of let you go and explain your questions.
Sure. One question I actually did have, I think in your opening, Commissioner Harbin-Forte, you stated that the enabling ordinance gave guidance to or the authority, I suppose, for this particular evaluation. I believe it does specifically state the chief of police and the agency director in the enabling ordinance, but it does not specify the inspector general in that section H, the inspector general. I believe it's a little bit outdated, so I just would like to state that the enabling ordinance is a little outdated in that that probably isn't the section that you might want to cite. The city charter does give you all the Oakland Police Commission authority to periodically do evaluations of the inspector general. So I'll go ahead. A lot of the questions that I had really had to do with measurement tools and how we would be measuring integrity. So the first kind of statement here, I would also like to note, it says early on, as the Association of Inspectors General notes. So the Association of Inspectors General Green Book is a principle and standards for offices of the Inspector General. So it's a guidebook for how to set up offices in their totality and what the characteristics of particular offices should have, particularly investigations, audits, inspections, evaluations. It does talk about the staffing within the Office of the Inspector General, but this particular quote is within the beginning portion of the Office of the Inspector General Green Book. And it specifically talks about the office as a whole and not particularly like the Inspector General. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear that the office should embody all of these characteristics and not just one person, but as you talk about the Office of the Inspector General. So I believe that this evaluation is supposed to be for the Inspector General as the individual and not the office. So I would just like to kind of clarify that.
Okay, excuse me a minute. But what section are you referring to? I want to clarify so that we're all on the same page. If we can go back up to our introduction, Kelly, can you go back up to the first part of it where it refers to the municipal code and keep going up, the first paragraph. It refers to our authority to conduct periodic performance evaluations, cites to the Oakland City Charter and the Oakland Municipal Code. It refers to all of them. So we have that stated in the form there, in the evaluation form itself. So, and now with respect to your other question, it relates to what section of the evaluation form?
So the section of the municipal code that I'm referring to is 2.45.070 functions and duties of the commission. Section H, where it says create a form for commissioners to use in providing annual comments, observations, and assessments to the city administrator regarding the inspector general's job performance. Each commissioner shall complete the form individually and submit his or her completed form to the city administrator confidentially. What I was trying to say, Commissioner Brenda Harbin Forte, is that when Measure S1 amended Measure LL, this particular section was not updated in the municipal code. So where we cited municipal code, so right here, section 2.4570 is exactly what I was reading. What it does say for section G is that the commission can conduct an annual performance review of the agency director and the chief. At that time, Measure LL, there was no office of the inspector general. Therefore, there was no inspector general. The commission shall determine the criteria for evaluating the agency directors and the chief's performance and communicate those performance criteria in addition to any other performance expectations to the agency director and chief 1 full year before conducting any evaluation of their job performance. So I was told previously, past practice was to go ahead and follow this section, considering the inspector general is not a part of G, fully aware and understand that. I just think that it would be equitable to follow that particular provision as we do move forward. So that's all I was notating, is that
Okay.
particular section H is defunct by the charter. S1, which gives the police commission the authority to make this performance evaluation for the inspector general. However, because H is outdated, all I was noting is that there be equitable and fair practices with the other agency directors under the charge of the Oakland Police Commission.
Okay, so and again, I just want to be clear, and council may need to weigh in because we have looked at that issue. We're well aware that, that the municipal code didn't catch up and hasn't been revised. So council may well want to weigh in on it. And then I'd like for us to clarify what your request seems to me it's going to boil down to not evaluating you under this form this year or something, or to give you a year after you have received this form in order to be evaluated under it. Is that what you're asking for?
I know you said you wanted council to go ahead and weigh in, so I'll defer to your council.
All right, I will, if you would just kind of let us know what it is, your point is your point that you should not be evaluated under this form until after you have been in receipt of the evaluation form for a year?
My point is that the information cited in this evaluation draft tool is incorrect, as you stated earlier, regarding the municipal code section. And then I just read the municipal code section to say that I would like to be treated fair and equitable as any other agency head that reports to and is overseen by the Oakland Police Commission.
Okay. I'll hear from Commission Counsel if you wish to address this issue.
Yes, thank you. Let me go ahead and show you. In short, the answer is the code that are cited are all accurate, but there is a, for lack of better words, seemingly a disagreement on whether we should read it to its T because it's believed to be outdated. So let me show you the provision that the inspector, particularly the Inspector General, is speaking about. There is no doubt the charter speaks to the periodic review authority that the commission has in evaluating the Inspector General, as the Inspector General has recognized. It also speaks to here G, the police chief and the agency director, i.e. the SIPR director, and specifically talks about setting forth criteria, performance evaluations, etc. It doesn't mention the Inspector General here. In H, as the Inspector General Phillips mentioned, it does speak to something to the effect around an evaluation form and developing it, etc., as it relates to the Inspector General's job, performance. And it is believed, because this was written before S1 was approved in 2020, it's believed that this is outdated. I know you as the ad hoc, you're very informed about this because of some counsel advice that I've been giving you around it. Okay, so I'm conveying the sentiments that the Inspector General is saying. That said, to ask the question again, Commissioner Harbin-Forte, to the Inspector General, is it the wish of the Inspector General not to have this portion as the driving, and is it your request that the Inspector General also be treated akin to this one, the G? In other words, is it the request of the Inspector General to have the evaluation form a year in advance before actual evaluation?
So, yes, I believe I had already requested that previously. So I just would like to be treated fairly and in an equitable manner. And that means to actually be noticed on performance evaluation metrics so that I have been given expectations appropriately and I have guidelines to move forward with to understand what the expectations of the Oakland Police Commission is, and then to be treated fairly as the agency director and the chief is, and to be given a year prior to that annual evaluation be completed. I just think that's just fair and equitable. And honestly, I don't know how I could be held to performance evaluation standards I was never noticed reasonably on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I think just to for clarity for the public's purpose, the ad hoc committee is fully aware of the nuance of the code provisions.
And we should indicate that Commissioner Howell has now joined us. He's been on for a few minutes. All right. Let's go to the IG's next comment. This is under the area of competency. Go ahead, Inspector General.
I thank you. So again, a couple of questions I had was how this integrity and high moral character is going to be evaluated and measured. There are certain, as I stated previously, the Association of Inspectors General Green Book is really kind of a guideline and best practices for offices of the Inspector General. And everyone within those offices, quite frankly, anyone working in civilian oversight should be held to the same standards as Office of the Inspectors General. To demonstrate integrity with words, again, I just would like some clarity on how this is supposed to be measured. That was one of the questions I had. I would think that as an Inspector General, quite frankly, any agency director, they would have these characteristics in order to move an agency forward. So I'm just curious as to what that measurement would be, particularly in the Excel spreadsheet that I received. There is also a stakeholder component. So I had a question about that. How would that stakeholder also be selected in order to be able to assess this integrity and high moral character for the Inspector General themselves? I also had a question about interacts with the commission chair, commission staff. I would think that I would interact with everyone equally with integrity and professionalism. I don't necessarily believe that it needs to be any particular group of people or people. I just think that that's just the best practice for all stakeholders and members of the public. But I'll go ahead and stop there and see how the Police Commission is going to measure this particular area of this competency.
Council, do you wish to weigh in on it? I think our plan today was to get the Inspector General's questions and concerns and not necessarily be able to give answers today.
Madam Chair, as you know, this instrument was developed several months ago and not by this particular ad hoc. And so if I may, through you, speak with our Inspector General that this is an opportunity for the ad hoc to hear your thought process, Inspector General Phillips. And so I'm taking notes for them as they are for themselves around the question of how integrity should be measured and that it should be measured by all, not just a particular call out of individuals. So we're taking note of that for possible revision.
Oh, my apologies. I thought it was supposed to be a discussion, a dialogue. That was what I received. So I was hopeful that there could be kind of some conversation, collaborative conversation about the process. Maybe that's my misunderstanding. I'm just really not quite sure what the objective was outside of just talking through the comments. Is that what I'm hearing? That it's just for me to kind of read the comments that I provided?
I think what we'd like to hear from you are your suggestions. If you have any suggestions for how we measure these kinds of things, we'd like to hear your suggestions for that, or whether we measure these things at all.
So I had provided several examples to, I guess, the previous ad hoc about, I reached out to the Association of Inspectors General as well as NACOL to provide some instruments, and I gave some points of contact. I wouldn't know because I didn't develop the tool. I didn't know the essence behind it. That's why I had asked the question, what you were trying to get at, what was kind of the essence of what you were trying to identify, which I can't answer that question because I didn't come up with a rubric. So I apologize if that's not helpful, but that's why I kind of wanted to have some dialogue around this. And I would be happy to provide those documents again and maybe some points of contact for you all. Again, that may be helpful.
Okay, we
I can-
actually we have some samples of evaluation forms, and we have also reached out to NACOL. I believe our chief of staff has reached out to NACOL, to some other evaluation services. But again, what we want to find out from you is what you think would be fair, particularly given the job announcement that the job posting that was there, and the kinds of things that the commission would be looking for in hiring the inspector general. So
And if,
go ahead.
just through the committee chair, I also wanted to add, so as not to bury the lead, it's not posted here, but it's at the top. The rating scale might give some insight into how one would measure these competencies, because it might not be a metric such as, was kind to X number of folks, but, if one were to consider the quality of interactions and rate them as exceptional, commendable, what have you, that might help answer some of those questions. Just FYI.
No, I saw the rating scale. Thank you so much, Chief of Staff. So I guess that would just be subjective to the individual who you guys may ask for, I guess, feedback. Because it just would, I guess, be kind of subjective to me, but it might be helpful if I go ahead and take a look back and suggest some different language that regarding, what I've seen in the IG world and oversight period. I just think it may be helpful for me to just kind of go back and say, I'm not quite sure how this is measured. And then the ad hoc not really be able to answer how they think that it should be measured. I guess that wasn't the purpose of this meeting. I can suggest to go back and change some language and then provide measurement guidelines that may be helpful to move forward. I mean, I guess that's the only thing. I just had several questions about measurements, and some things were just a little bit unclear for me. Particularly, I had one question. I guess, Chief of Staff, you can go ahead down to service delivery. So some of these items are in particularly preparing an annual report, summarizing the results. So that's directly from the enabling ordinance. Again, the enabling ordinance, I'm assuming, was written for a fully functioning staffed office with the appropriate resources to get these items done in the appropriate fashion. I think everybody kind of knows in the last 18 months, unfortunately, we haven't been able to staff up completely the Office of the Inspector General. And for the first 5 months, I was in office of one by myself. So again, that kind of gives a little bit of credence and justification to my request to be noticed on the evaluation metrics and tool. And I'm just As far as like visionary and innovative leadership, we can go ahead. Or, well, I guess the services as well. The municipal code states the day-to-day operations within the Office of the Inspector General is at the office. The Inspector General is supposed to take on responsibility for the day-to-day operation. And then there's just some areas where it seems like the commission is kind of dictating to the Inspector General certain things within the office. Particularly, there was an area about meetings. I think it was the Force Review Board meetings or something like that, which of course, when staffed up, I think the OIG would be very cognizant. And I say OIG as an office, cognizant to ensure that we are at the appropriate meetings and we're well represented. But sometimes, as we all know, some meetings can be quite lengthy and there's a lot of work to be done, particularly meetings that are recorded that we can go back and listen to. So I think that should, and as the enabling ordinance state, day-to-day operations of the Inspector General should make that determination regarding limited resources and those expectations of the staff and how they'll be able to ensure that we're in the appropriate places at the appropriate times to garner the information that we're supposed to garner. So the vision, yeah, right there. So this section, quite frankly, is just a little bit confusing to me. Develop and begin to implement long-term initiatives that empower the OIG to deliver the services Oakland will need in the future. I think that I believe we're trying to get at a particular area, you know, strategic planning, right? So that's what we tend to do with strategic plans. And then to deliver service Oakland will need in the future. I think that's kind of outlined in the charter mandate requirements for the Office of the Inspector General to do auditing and monitoring. That's rather clear, but to flesh that out, identify benchmark jurisdictions and overhaul training and professional development. Again, this seems to be a little cut and paste to me. I think I get the understanding of what this is supposed to mean, but this is a brand new office. So, you know, develop programs to represent and overhauling training. We never really had one to create that and establish professional education and training, which is what I've outlined in several of my report outs to the Oakland Police Commission at the commission meetings. It's also in our standard operating procedures, continuing professional education requirements for our staff. Again, I'm not really quite sure, is that something that I need to present to the commission to review? Is that something that I need to present to stakeholders to review in order for them to provide feedback as well? I would think that that's kind of something internally, and our staff members in the Office of the Inspector General going to be interviewed to see if any of these items are being adhered to regarding their training and professional development. You know, craft and implement employee development plans. Is the ad hoc going to come in and go through those employee development plans, given that the Office of the Inspector General, it clearly says in the enabling ordinance, the Inspector General is supposed to provide day-to-day oversight to the staff. So again, the whole kind of section was just a little bit confusing. And then there was 2 bullet points on there that were the same. Develop, you know, integrate and track program portfolios identified in the strategic plan and standard operating procedures. Definitely have both already, and they are readily available on the website. We're actually finalizing our strategic plan for the next 2 years. That was in the last police commission report out for the OIG. So I welcomed police commission feedback on that, as well as feedback from the members of the public. Again, I think that also speaks to the transparency of the office. So I'm assuming that that's how you would be able to measure that. Again, I just had several questions about this particular area. I don't know if anybody would like to discuss or not, but does this mean that the ad hoc will come in and ask me for these documents to review? I don't know what that procedure or process will look like. And I'm guessing there will be no discussion, which is absolutely fine. So we can go ahead down to adaptive leadership.
Madam Chair,
I-
Madam Forte, Committee Chair.
I'm sorry?
May I ask a question of our?
Yes, yes, please.
Thank you, IG. Just for clarification purposes, you asked the question of whether your staff team will be interviewed or, asked to fill out any evaluation form to confirm some of the work or et cetera, on like professional development, et cetera. Is it a question, or is that a question for you, or is that a request that they not be interviewed, or a request that they do be interviewed? I didn't want to.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I was just simply stating the obvious. I just wasn't quite sure how this, I don't have any thought, quite frankly, one way or another. I just didn't understand how this would be measured. Again, there's a lot of items on here that I just had questions about the measurement and how anybody would be able to identify these areas, speaking about training and professional development without speaking to the staff or reviewing a plan. I don't know what that procedure will look like regarding this measurement tool. So I just wanted clarity. I had questions, I'm not sure. And I guess that would be up to the police commission as to what would be the best course of action and how that would look. I would hope that there would be discussion with myself as to how to get to the answers that you may have. I would never interfere with the process. I just need to understand what that process is, and it seems like there still needs to be some areas to flesh out with the process. I hope that answers your question.
Very much so. Thank you.
If I may also offer, I think that this is just something I'm recalling from the last iteration of this ad hoc and some of the conversations. I think, Inspector General, you're asking really great questions, and all of these questions are probably opportunities for the commission to lean into your subject matter expertise. And so anytime you have a question, I think it would immediately be, well, what, based on my expertise, would I suggest to the commission for their discussion? And that way it doesn't feel, it feels more like a discussion than
No, I agree with you. I thought that we would have a discussion. I think it would be helpful to have a discussion. I could definitely provide some input if that was something that the ad hoc wanted to do. I quite frankly thought that this was, again, what we would be doing. It doesn't seem that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that's what we want to do. It's kind of like, well, provide the questions or provide the feedback, and then you can come back with a response. Whereas the collaborative dialogue, to understand that we have a cohesive tool. This is a tool for the Inspector General position. This is not a tool for me as the Inspector General in this moment. And I think being able to assess appropriately expectations of not only the police commission, but the community is in the best interest of all of us and I would hope that we would be able to develop this and have a clear understanding of roles and expectations, because if I don't understand it, then the next Inspector General behind me will not understand it. And I think that's only fair, as well as the community at large. And hopefully it will be a collaborative process, as the commission has stated, providing feedback and getting feedback from not only myself, but others. If there's dialogue, I think it would be helpful moving forward. So I do agree with you, Chief of Staff.
So if I may, I think that part of the reason that this process is sort of looks the way it does right now, currently, is because of the inconsistencies between LL and S1, because of the inconsistencies between how evals have been done previously, and also what we understand to be sort of best practices around job evaluations in general. And exactly the point you were making, that this is not necessarily about you as an individual. This is about the office. And this is about creating consistency between all of the program heads, department heads who the commission oversees, not just these commissioners who are here. Again, this isn't about us as individuals necessarily. This is about trying to build something out that is usable and functional, that lacks sort of a, that doesn't have a shorthand or is not specific to the personalities or individuals in the moment, but is something that is plug and play, that will work for future commissioners and future department heads. We are attempting to create something that is uniform across all departments so that all of those department heads will be receiving essentially the same evaluation. That really hasn't happened so far. Those things have been sort of like in development as they've been utilized. And from my perspective, they need to be developed before they're put into play. And so that is my intent in taking part here. And so I get what you're saying, and we are working from a template. This template is not necessarily going to be the be all end all. This is just sort of where we're starting. And as to the other questions around who might be, I think it is becoming much more standard best practice to do more of a 360 eval. And not just sort of a top-down hierarchical perspective around evaluations, but getting a sense of how a staff person works with peers and subordinates as well. And so we are looking at that process, and we are trying to make something that sort of stands the test of time and is equitable, as you said. So we do understand part of the reason we're having these conversations is because also for us, some of these things are a little unclear as to how we would enact them. As was noted earlier, this particular group of people didn't actually create this template. So we are looking to sort of make a template that is functional moving forward. And I'd like to just remind everyone here that we are not the final arbiters, the entire commission is. And this is all going to go for public review, where yourself and members of the public can review this document and give feedback at that time as well before it's finalized. So to my mind, this is not sort of a like penultimate, like you have to put in feedback now, and this is whatever comes out of this meeting is sort of what it looks like. It is, this is an iterative sort of moving the ball forward. And because you requested it, but also because, it needs to happen. I think, these kind of conversations need to happen periodically anyway. So that answers some of the questions around intent.
No, I appreciate that, Vice Chair Jordan. Thank you. I think that we do need to have an iterative process. The reason I was kind of rushing through is because I believe Commissioner Harvin Forte said that the document would be on the next agenda item. And I think that we need to be thoughtful in how this is crafted. And to your point, have dialogue. As an oversight practitioner, a chief's evaluation is not going to be the same as the IG's evaluation, is not going to be the same template as the executive director for CPRA. We have very different charges, all three of us. And I think it needs to be thoughtful, particularly coming from another IG office, what worked there and working with other practitioners in the area, and look at different models and taking a deeper dive in that conversation. So again, to your point, as a subject matter expert, I have no problem having dialogue with this so that I can get a clearer understanding as to what the outcome measurement is supposed to be. So I'm happy, again, to go back and provide some different information and a different iteration of maybe this document to help kind of flush out some of the lack of clarity.
Yeah, so I agree that, though you have sort of different mandated responsibilities, I think in the way that like within a company, you we'll have different staff people with different jobs, different responsibilities, and different maybe sort of standards that they have to meet. But the process should be as uniform as possible to sort of, you know, again, we're looking at equity to make sure that you're not holding some
Absolutely.
folks to a higher standard than others. And so, though we do understand that sort of what those metrics might be in specific for the different departments may differ. The standard, the sort of philosophical approach and all of that piece of it needs to be as uniform as possible so that we're comparing sort of apples to apples when we're doing this process in some ways. So that we're not saying, well, we're holding one office to a much higher standard than, you know, all of the other people in which we oversee, because, you know, we feel like you need to because there's a sense of sort of like, well, you are just held to a higher standard because arbitrary reason X, you know, like we want to be able to sort of clearly articulate what those standards are, why they exist, and why they differ across those different evaluation templates.
Understood. I guess I'm not quite sure. I know we're at 5:48. I don't have a problem with, but kind of the same theme is throughout the documents. And again, I have no problem having an open discussion regarding, you know, kind of the issues that I've outlined. Again, it's kind of the same with issues, particularly culture transformation. I don't have any culture to transform in the office just yet. I just hired my 2 full-time folks. So again, just having this dialogue and understanding where I am in this office, because a fully functioning office that has been up and running for years, I think there's a different set of expectations, or there should be, quite frankly, a different set of expectations when you have an office that hasn't gotten going. So what that iteration of that evaluation tool looks like, given the lack of resources. So I would definitely implore the entire ad hoc to take that into consideration as well, given that, as the commission said, when they started building the ship while they were sailing it. That's kind of what the OIG has also been doing.
Yeah, I think that's at least in my mind, and I feel like for the group, that is a given in some ways. For example, as CIPRA moves towards taking over the larger responsibility of IAD, the new CIPRA director is you know, reasonably going to have to be given allotted a certain amount of latitude around what that looks like, because that is a massive undertaking, similar to what you've done in the last year and a half, or is it 2 years at this point? Year and a half. Sorry, the times tends to run together doing this stuff. You know, and similarly, the chief, you know, a chief under the NSA is going to be a different sort of responsibility than sort of what that job looks like without the NSA. And, you know, with sort of defined reforms that need to be taken into account. So I think that we can ideally, as individuals, recognize the limitations and the challenges inherent to the job as it stands, and sort of evaluate fairly, I would hope.
I would like for us, IG Phillips, I would like for us to go through the rest of although we said 30 minutes or so, we did get started a little late and still maybe 30 minutes, but I'd like to make sure that we get everything that we can and that you have to add. And I echo everything that Vice Chair Jordan has said. This is, and we are, unfortunately, they talk about reinventing the wheel. We are inventing the wheel. And we don't have any examples or samples of research we did. We asked, for example, city administration, how do you evaluate agency heads? Do you have a standard form or anything? Is there anything that you look for? They don't have evaluations of agency heads, apparently, is what we're getting. So we are charged with evaluating agency heads. So we are, as Commissioner Jordan likes to say, you know, we're building the plane while we're flying it, and sometimes things are going to crash, unfortunately, or maybe a wing may fall off or something. We'll try to get it back on, but we do want to make sure that the evaluation process does withstand the test of time, and that it'd be something that is useful for future generations. And even the one with the chief, as you noted, he is no longer here by the time we would have been evaluating him under this matrix. He is no longer with the city. So we still have to work out an entire process for doing it, and one that will be fair to everyone and adaptable to the various positions. So, but I would like for us to go through, if you have the time, to see if there's anything additional.
So what I would say is that normally at other oversight agencies I've worked at, they utilize the legislation to guide measurement. OIGs, usually police oversight agencies and governmental oversight agencies, are assessed on their performance based on products that are driven. So utilizing the expectations, and I think that was kind of further down the last competency or component that kind of outlines, and the budget also provides for measurements. They ask for certain deliverables. Our strategic plan has goals as well that assess kind of where we are. So I know that several jurisdictions tend to do that moving forward, but that's just something that I've seen in this particular space as a practitioner. So adaptive leadership, absolutely. I think that as we've grown, there has been growing pains. The OIG stepping into this role and within the oversight that has already been established has been a growing pain, understanding where they fit and working through that. But I think adaptability goes both ways, and there has to be thoughtful conversations and communication as to what that looks like moving forward. So I think that some of these are really great, exhibit resourcefulness in the face of new challenges. Again, I just have questions about how this is going to be measured, but that's kind of the same theme throughout is the measurement tool to evaluate the office as we move forward. So transparent leadership, again, it's just the same question. I'm not really quite sure how this is going to be measured. Again, I'm open to discuss this. I just don't necessarily know. Of course, some ways transparency can be utilized is via social media, website, providing that information, but communicated in a timely, direct, and comprehensive manner. I think that's just objective. With authority and empathy, I'm really not even quite sure why those would be a part of a performance evaluation for the Inspector General there. And if it's talking about particularly to individuals, again, I just want to kind of have conversation. I think communication in a professional manner, being able to understand the subject matter and the individuals that you're speaking to is kind of the theme on all of these leaderships. You know, a lot of the adaptive leadership, visionary, innovative leadership. It's a lot of the same components, I would think. So just outlining how that's going to be measured would be helpful for any Inspector General, any person, honestly. Rational leadership. Again, how am I going to be evaluated on my high emotional intelligence, or anybody's high emotional intelligence, as well as compassion, consistent? I just don't understand. I know that there's a component for stakeholders to help put forth some input on the Inspector General's evaluation. How are those stakeholders going to be selected? Is that random? Are we talking about stakeholders within city government, stakeholders outside of city government? Again, what I just have questions about how that's going to work, and is that something that's going to be consistent? Is it random selection? Is it information that's going to be provided in an open forum? So cultivate positive community relations through sustained in-person interaction with all of the Oakland's diverse neighborhoods and civic and community groups. Again, I'm just curious what and how that's going to be measured. Partnership that add value to the work of the commission, OIG, and CPRA. I'm just not even quite sure, given the fact that I don't know, and I've kind of been talking about this, the intersectionality between these entities. I don't necessarily work with CPRA. They have a particular charge, and then I have a particular charge. There is communication there to have information provided. Again, understanding how the OIG interacts with the commission would be really helpful, particularly so that there's accountability there for the information. As far as the strategic partnership, I just don't think we've been able to flesh that out in my tenure here. And it would be super helpful if that would come to fruition, quite frankly, sooner rather than later, because I don't know what that expectation is if I don't know what it looks like. So sustainable leadership. Again, renew the OIG's commitment to sustainability, including racial justice. I wasn't really quite sure what renew meant. I think our mission and goals and values for the Office of the Inspector General align with social justice and procedural justice, and our work being completed in a fair, firm, and impartial way. I don't understand what humanizing workplace culture is supposed to mean. That would be helpful if someone could tell me what that means. I think, we have a great workplace culture, but again, if folks are not here, or how they're going to be able to assess that. Promote policies and rules that support mental and emotional health and well-being. I think that's really the city of Oakland does that. They have EAP, they have policies, a central repository that kind of governs how each agency is supposed to operate regarding some of these areas to support our staff, particularly if a staff member is going to an officer-involved shooting to witness or identify, or is reviewing particular evidence or information. So I would be abiding by the City of Oakland's policies, as well as the memorandums of understandings for each individual union to ensure that all of the staff within the Office of the Inspector General is supported in the best way possible. Again, it foster an environment advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice. I'm curious about how that's going to be measured moving forward. So we can go ahead and move down to cultural transformation. I think some of this is just duplicative also. It might be helpful for the commission to maybe condense some once there is a, I guess, clear measurement guideline. But again, I definitely have no problem sitting down with the ad hoc and kind of revamping the tool. I believe someone told me that maybe the commission's council created this tool for the previous ad hoc prior to the change of this to this iteration of the ad hoc. So I don't know if that's something that would be helpful for me to put some input into the documents, considering it should stand the test of time. I just think professionalism is just something that every office should hold dear. Some of the specifics hold all employees accountable to their public interactions, including their interactions with the commission. Again, I think any interaction, it's just universal. You should always be understanding when there's interaction with individuals, regardless if it's the commission, it's the mayor, there should be city council, or a gentleman or a female on the street. We should just always be above board. And that's what the Association of Inspectors General Green Book also delineates and outlines. So the NSA compliance and post NSA preparation section. I had questions because I think there's just been some miscommunication or some different communication with me, particularly about the OIG's role while outside of compliance. So there are some different guidelines that are outlined in the enabling ordinance. So some of these things we already kind of tend to do, schedule and prepare commission reports, which I believe is an appropriate platform. If there's anybody who has any questions or issues with the reporting structure or anything within the report, I would hope that they would ask those questions in that platform to gain clarity. But that's, again, it would be great to get some feedback to see if there's any information that the commission would like the IG's office to provide during the police commission report out that I don't do now. That would be some helpful feedback moving forward. And again, like I said previously, our work plan, our strategic plan, all of that is on the website, and we have the draft one on the website as well for feedback. So if the police commission ad hoc has any feedback on the strategic plan that we have right now, it's still in draft form. Prior to finalizing that, I am more than happy to hear any feedback or suggestions as we move forward. Again, it was in the agenda packet for the last report out for the Office of the Inspector General. So I will leave this that I am willing to provide input. I would be happy to have a discussion and actual back and forth dialogue about expectations so that there's clarity on both ends moving forward. So thank you for allowing me to go through my comments on the tool.
Well, thank you for providing them. And I know that we have some audience members. I don't know if any members of the public have raised their hands or anything to try to ask any questions. And as we get that together, again, I just want to clarify that some of the issues regarding evaluation were and remain legal issues because there is a conflict between the municipal code and the city charter, and things needed to be worked out from a legal perspective. And there is that legal perspective that still needs to be answered because you also say that the city administrator is to have basically to not interfere or have any oversight of the commission or the IG or the other agency heads. That basically is up for the commission. So there are questions that remain, but I think everyone on the commission is committed to fairness. And because this was a new office, to have had an evaluation form to hand out to the new IG probably would not have been very practical either upon hiring. But it is something that we still have to look at in terms of when the new CIPRA director comes in, do we hand him an evaluation form and say in a year, this is what you'll be evaluated on? And also, or we'll give it this to you in a year or 6 months, and then a year from then we give it to you. So there are some procedural steps that need to be worked out that will be fair to everyone involved. And we lost one SIPRA director, we're hiring another one. We lost the police chief, we're hiring another one. You have been here as the Inspector General, but you're the newest member of the family, so to speak, in terms of our oversight roles. I guess the SIPRA director would be the newest member of the family, the new one. But in any event, I thank you. You actually raised some very, very good points in your comments. And it gives all of us pause as to what we recommend, where we go from here, what is the best way to move forward, and what is the fairest way to move forward, and what do we do about getting the city charter amended and getting the municipal code amended to make sure that there is no obvious conflict between the various governing provisions. So, Ms. Young, Kelly, are there people who want to make comments or something?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stopwatch and give everyone about 2 minutes like we usually do. And
Okay. And how many hands do we have raised?
just one, it's Miss Grenage.
Okay, all right. So let's hear then from Ms. Grenage. Ms. Grenage, good evening. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Well, I just wanted to say that the degree to which I could read the text on the screen gave me the impression that the evaluation tool is quite new age-ish. I don't know the origin of the document, but I would think a departure from what I would assume would be a form that would be used in other jurisdictions for an auditor or for an inspector general. And as the inspector general noted, there is a lot of subjectivity involved in many of the components that are named in this tool, and not very much attention to the actual job of monitoring and auditing the police department in terms of the kind of work that is currently being undertaken by the independent monitor team. So I would like to see a comparison of that tool with other tools that are used in other jurisdictions, just to look at the degree of differentiation in the nature of the topics that are identified. But I appreciate the ad hoc giving us the opportunity to have an early preview before it comes to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grenage. And that's it. Kelly?
Yes, that's all for now.
All right, excellent. We have to go into closed session now on with legal counsel on some issues. So we will then end the public portion of our ad hoc meeting. And again, thank you, Inspector General Phillips, for coming in today. I'm sure there will be many more conversations.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right.